Let's continue the problem from before where we had to restrict the domain to create a one-to-one function. As a brief reminder, right now what we're doing is we're figuring out what is f inverse of x on the domain that is restricted. That is, find f inverse of x for f of x equals x plus 3 squared on the domain minus 3 comma infinity. Let's follow those same steps that we outlined earlier. First, we'll set f of x, which is x plus 3 squared, equal to y. Now we'll go ahead and solve for x, and we'll see towards the end that the domain restriction will matter. Keep in mind that x is bigger than or equal to negative 3. Now, in order to solve for x, I have something squared is equal to y. So that means that whatever you're squaring is plus or minus the square root of y. To help you remember why that is, remember if you have something squared, for example, equals 4, then what are the solutions to this equation? Well, t could be 2, but it also could be negative 2 because negative 2 squared is 4. This 2 is the square root of 4. And that's exactly what I'm doing over here. I'm taking y and I'm doing plus or minus the square root of y. Here we had 4, we did plus or minus the square root of 4. Note that this only works when the entire left-hand side is squared. Now the only difference here is that we had an x plus 3, but I could replace this t with an x plus 3, and then it would look very similar to what we had over on the left-hand side. Now I'll go ahead and solve for x. So I have x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of y. Now, just like when you have quadratic equations, when you have a plus or minus, that indicates that there are two answers. Here there will not be two answers, and to eliminate one of the answers, we'll use the domain restriction that x is bigger than or equal to negative 3. So we have that x is equal to negative 3 plus the square root of y and negative 3 minus the square root of y. But if you do negative 3 minus the square root of y, you'll get a number that is less than negative 3. For example, if y was 1, you'd get negative 3 minus the square root of 1, which is negative 4. That's less than negative 3. And x has to be bigger than or equal to negative 3. So because of that, we're going to go ahead and choose this plus, and we have that x is negative 3 plus the square root of y. Now remember, in order to figure out the inverse, we set f of x equal to y, we solve for x, and then we switch x and y. So we'll go ahead and switch x and y. Y is negative 3 plus the square root of x. And so our inverse function, replacing y with f inverse, is f inverse of x equals negative 3 plus the square root of x.